Greetings, citizens, and welcome to Unknown. I'm Jason McClellan. I'm here with Shane Hurd. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you follow UFO-related news, or if you follow any of us on social media, you most likely heard that UFO legend Stanton Friedman recently passed away. We'll be talking about that today and the legacy created by Stanton Friedman. But first, let's talk about some other UFO stories making headlines. On May 22nd, the New York Post published a story titled, "The Pentagon Finally Admits It Investigates UFOs." Of course, this is in relation to the Pentagon's reportedly now defunct program known as the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or ATIP, that was alluded to by the program's former head back in October of 2017 and named by the New York Times in December of that same year. In this new article by the New York Post, a Pentagon spokesperson confirms that ATIP did look into UFOs, which has been a contested element of the program to this point. The Pentagon spokesperson also confirmed that ATIP was shut down in 2012, as previously reported, but it still investigates reported sightings. Now, Shane, this is an interesting story because we get information from a Pentagon spokesperson. However, in relation to this very same news, this very same program, ATIP, we've heard from more than one Pentagon spokespersons in the past, and we received different information. So what do you make of that?
Well, I certainly kind of get the impression that there may be some left hand, right hand, doesn't know what the other one's doing kind of a thing.
Well, you and I have both worked in government.
Yes.
Certainly at the local level, it's different, but the same, right? I mean,
silos are silos, right?
That's exactly right.
So, yeah, that's probably, part of it, or, it could be something else. But, I mean, just, face value. I'm sure these government agencies are scrambling to catch up with all this and, make sure to, carefully put their foot forward in a way that, keeps them out of trouble, yet, they're responsive to all this new information coming out.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I do think it's an important thing to bring up and to keep reminding researchers who are following this story. It's certainly something that I feel that we all need to keep in mind. You need to keep track of these things and not necessarily promoting conspiracies or anything, but we do need to understand that there have been multiple spokespeople from the Pentagon who have not only denied this program ever existed, but also denied that it had anything to do with UFOs. Now we're hearing that it does have to do with, or did at least look into UFOs. These are things that we need to keep in mind following this whole story, which will continue to progress, and certainly I think in an accelerated pace now that, we've got all these people looking into it. But it is important to not just latch on to the narrative that fits your desires or the narrative you want to exist, right? So we don't just blindly accept the spokesperson who says UFOs and dismiss the previous spokespeople who said not UFOs. So it's important to keep that in mind during this research process and tracking all the information that's coming out with this program.
Yeah, and probably the pressure from the UFO community and media, may have something to do with them, finally making this admission. Who knows, So, I mean, healthy skepticism is certainly important and appropriate in this case. And, take everything with a grain of salt, good or bad, whether you agree with it, disagree with it, because the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely. And again, something I want to point out too, that, as a journalist, the way these things come about isn't necessarily based on public pressure or anything. It most of the time comes down to journalists who are sending requests and putting pressure on the Pentagon to issue a statement about something. And that's what we've seen, certainly in the past several months with these articles coming out from mainstream media. It's just individual journalists reaching out to the Pentagon to get an official response. And that's what we've seen. So
yeah, good point.
So another bit of UF news I want to briefly mention today is the announcement that a new UFO show is coming to the Travel Channel titled Alien Highway. Now, when I first read that title, one person came to my mind, and that was paranormal investigator Chuck Zukowski. And sure enough, this new series stars Chuck and his son Daniel and veteran paranormal researcher Heather Taddy from the A&E series Paranormal State. So, Shane, did you read the release on this show?
Yeah, I saw that, and that's pretty fascinating that, again, we're getting just more UFO content.
Right.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, no, I'm loving it too. Yeah, this is going to be on Travel Channel, and they've said that the first episode is going to deal with one of our favorite subjects, and that's Skinwalker.
Yeah, yep.
So, and it mentioned, Chuck's theory that perhaps a Skinwalker could be tied to extraterrestrials. So that'll be fun to watch. The series premieres on June 12th, again on the Travel Channel. We're looking forward to that one.
Awesome.
We want to spend a little time now remembering UFO research pioneer Stanton Friedman. Friedman was a nuclear physicist who left his career behind in 1970 to focus full-time on UFO research. What caused this scientist to deviate from his area of specific focus? His obituary in the New York Times explains that Stan's interest in UFOs began when he read Captain Ed Ruppelt's book, The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects. Ruppelt was the officer who headed the Air Force's UFO program, Project Blue Book, at one time. Friedman's obituary goes on to state that he became a true believer after reading the statistic from Project Blue Book that, of all the sightings investigated by the project, 701 were categorized as unknowns, which, by absolutely no coincidence, is the name of this show. Stan was one of the early civilian investigators of the 1947 Roswell UFO incident, and it's his research, published in the 1992 book he co-authored with Don Berliner, titled Crash at Corona, the U.S. military retrieval and cover-up of a UFO, that is primarily responsible for reintroducing the public to the largely forgotten Roswell incident and making Roswell a household name. Stan was a fixture at UFO-related events across the country and around the world. He was an author of several UFO books, he lectured constantly, and he loved exploring the great mystery of UFOs. It's a quest to which he devoted his life. And although this may seem shocking to some, like many, if not most, UFO researchers, Stan never saw a UFO. And that's kind of sad, Shane. I feel so bad for him. I wish he would have been able to have that moment where he finally got to see a UFO, or the term Stan preferred, flying saucer. Stan was a proponent of the term flying saucer.
Yeah, absolutely. And who knows now, maybe he now knows the truth of it. So maybe he didn't get to see him when he was alive, but maybe he knows something now,
Absolutely, man. That's my hope too. That's what we always hope. So Shane, I mean, Stan was around a lot, and certainly at UFO events, even if he wasn't speaking, he had a presence there. He'd always see the legendary Stanton Friedman sitting at his table and always warm and inviting, welcoming people, attendees at these events to come up and chat with him. He was very approachable, and he loved that. And despite his retiring more than a year ago, he was still at pretty much every event, and I think he loved it. But do you have a favorite memory of Stanton Friedman?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, so many people over the last few days have been able to really say some great things and share some great memories of Stan, and I suppose mine are very similar to everyone else's. And when I first started getting serious about UFOs in about 2010, the first thing I looked for was credibility, and there were a couple people that stood out. Of course, Richard Dolan and Leslie Kean at the time, and most certainly Stan Friedman. And, having those sort of anchors of credibility, kept me going forward in this and my study and research. And I mean, I do really credit him with some of the powerful logic and the way he communicated it. For example, I almost say it's sort of like a shtick with him. He was just absolutely brilliant of how he would communicate things. So like, when he would talk about debunkers and stuff, and he would say the same 4 points. He'd say, they would say, like, don't bother me with the facts. My mind is made up. And then, what the public doesn't know, I won't tell them. And then argue your position by proclamation. And then finally, if you can't attack the data, attack the person. Right. I mean, those are just brilliant and nearly irrefutable points that he would make, and he would drive home, and he would say it every time. But, that's what was so brilliant about it. It was simple and straightforward, yet he's a nuclear physicist, right? He could talk probably above any of us. But no, he would make his points just clear and concise, and then, it'd be in that semi-grandfatherly, semi-nuclear physicist way. I mean, it's just really hard to express, but those are some of the things that really made a big impression on me, in the early time, but before I'd even met him. And then meeting him was just, an absolute pleasure. The guy was a sweetheart of a person, which just really, just made it great. He just became a great icon immediately in my mind.
Yeah. And, another thing that he would constantly state in his presentations is something that's extremely relevant today, right? He would constantly encourage us to avoid the noisy negativists. I would always love to hear him talk about the noisy negativist. And, certainly with social media today, that's something we all live with, and something that infiltrates the world of UFO research, and we all deal with on a daily basis. So the noisy negativist always reminds me of Stanton Friedman.
Oh yeah, me too. That's just classic Stan. Or the other one, I love this line, but it's just so brilliant. Again, he would say, 90% of UFOs are identifiable. Mm-hmm. But I don't care about those. I just care about the real ones. I mean, again, it's just so brilliant. Yeah. Okay, you want to whine and complain and focus on the 90 whatever percent. Okay, go ahead. But, the real stuff, that's what I'm really interested in. I don't care about the noise, let's get to the good stuff. And again, just a brilliant point expressed in a brilliant way. And, it's just that kind of logic that really kept me moving forward.
Yeah, he was really good at that. I have so many memories of Stan, and, he became a good friend over the years, and it was just always such a warm, good, comforting feeling, like you experience a lot, when you go to these UFO-related events. It becomes, again, sort of like a reunion. You start seeing the same people, and you make friends with these people over the years. Mm-hmm. You develop these relationships. So anytime you go to one of these events, you see some of these people. It's a really, really fun time that way, and it was always great to go to an event and see Stan, and he was usually with his good friend and co-author Kathleen Martin. So you'd see them two together, and it was just just something you could always count on seeing, and it was always comforting seeing that. One of my earliest memories of Stan was probably at the International UFO Congress, when it was still in Laughlin, and it was probably the year that we at Open Minds had acquired the conference, and so we were there for one last year in Laughlin, and we were doing these daily recaps or live streaming, or doing some sort of production where we were going around and sort of recapping the day's events and talking to people there and stuff. Stan was certainly one of the first interviews that Maureen and I ever did, in our UFO career. How can you go wrong with that, starting with one of the best,
cool is
right?
that?
I mean, you can only go down from there. so that certainly was a great kickstart to our career. But my probably favorite memory, just because it's one of the most recent and just kind of bizarre, random things. I came across these cigars several years ago that are created by a cigar company called Illusione, and they are the individual behind the company is very much into UFOs and conspiracy theories and all sorts of strange stuff. And so the lines of cigars he puts out are in that vein. And one of the lines of cigars that he has are called MJ12.
Oh, awesome.
And if you get a box of these cigars, they're covered in Illuminati symbols, and they say MJ12 on them. It's very cool. And so I had to get a box of these, and I had to show them to Stan Friedman, because Stan Friedman certainly has spoken very much about MJ12. And so one year at probably the International UFO Congress, I pulled this box of MJ12 cigars out of my bag and went up to Stan and showed him these cigars, and the look on his face was just priceless. He was like just this happy little boy, and he saw, where did you get these? It was exactly everything I was hoping it would be and more, just to see his reaction. It's great. Cool. I took some photos of Stan holding this box of MJ12 cigars, and I certainly invited him to join us to smoke some MJ12 cigars later that night. But this is shortly after his heart attack, and he saw, my doctor wouldn't be too happy if I did. I said, well, that makes sense. Not. So, but it was great to be able to show Stan some MJ12 cigars.
Oh man, that'd be a picture to have, and blow that thing up and frame it. I mean, that's just one of a kind, as unique as you get.
Yeah. No, that was certainly priceless, and so many memories of Stan at so many different events over the years. Certainly, it's going to be weird at the Roswell UFO festival without Stan, right? I mean, he's always there. He's always he'd always be in the lead car at the parade they have at the Roswell UFO festival. And so
classic.
Yeah. No, I mean, Stan is, to me, and certainly it should be to everybody else, is like synonymous with Roswell, right? I mean, Stan and Roswell go hand in hand.
Yep.
So, I mean, it was an honor knowing Stan, and I mean, his legacy is going to live forever.
Yeah, I am so grateful to have had that period of time in my life where he was around, and had met him, and it's kind of part of it too. I mean, I used to think to myself, it's going to be a sad day when he's gone, because obviously he was up in age and stuff, and ufology has changed a bit, but some of these old guard, which I would consider him definitely going away, it's almost kind of a little scary, or a little, destabilizing in my mind, what's going to happen now in the future and stuff. But we'll be okay. And, everything he has done is well recorded and, available for everyone. And it'll just be a matter of, keeping him alive in our minds, and his work, alive in our minds. And it's been critical to ufology, and what he has done for it is it's just priceless.
I'd be curious to see what, if anything, the city of Roswell does. To commemorate Stan. I mean, I and again, this is private. This has nothing to do with the city, but it'd be amazing if the UFO Museum were to rename themselves the Stanton Friedman International UFO Museum and Research Center. That would be kind of awesome.
Yeah, I absolutely think something like that will happen. I mean, as much as Roswell, the city has embraced that whole thing, and he's certainly the father of it. I mean, there's no doubt. I'm certain there's going to be some form of commemoration of Stan there in Roswell.
Change Main Street. So awesome. Main Street needs to be Stanton Friedman Boulevard or whatever.
Exactly.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, big thanks to Stan for everything you contributed to ufology. You sort of established ufology and gave it credibility, being this scientist studying UFOs. Kind of awesome. We love you, Stan.
Yeah, courageous man.
Well, citizens, as we wrap up this episode, I invite you to come join us in the Rogue Planet Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Rogue Planet and share a favorite Stanton Friedman memory or anything else UFO related that's on your mind. Make sure to join us on the next episode. We'll be reviewing the premiere episode of the new history series, Unidentified. Unidentified premieres on May 31st. Check your listings for local broadcast times. And AlienCon LA is right around the corner. Ryan Sprague and I will be speaking at AlienCon, which takes place June 21st through June 23rd at the Los Angeles Convention Center in Los Angeles, California. We'll talk more about this great event on the next episode, but for now, you can check out thealiencon.com for all the details. And if you haven't grabbed your tickets yet, use the code UNKNOWN to receive 10% off your purchase. You can find more episodes of Unknown on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and even YouTube. Subscribe on your favorite podcast provider so you're notified when we publish new episodes. And if you haven't done it already, do us a big favor and take a minute to rate and review Unknown on your favorite podcast platform. You can always find the show at rogueplanet.tv because Unknown is a Rogue Planet production. rogueplanet.tv is your home for all the strange. Big thanks to our talented friend and fellow Rogue Planeteer Caleb Hanks for the show's intro and outro music. Check out all his work at theclerkchronicles.com. Thanks again for hanging out with us today. I'm Jason McClellan.
And I'm Shane Hurd.
Do us a favor, friends. Always treat the UFO subject with the cautious and responsible skepticism it deserves. Question everything. Have the courage to form your own opinions. Keep truth as the focus of your quest, even if the truth conflicts with your own opinions. And, of course, stay strange.